Hello, here's Woersema, and I made a lecture, so I'm going to read it for you, should be easier than to read it yourself. I'm reading it from a Thank you for coming to this class in Real Economics. The chat lecture is preceded by Part 1. How does trade work? What is wrong with capitalism? One look at the world and the failure of the ruling system is painfully obvious. To understand its failure, we have to go back to the roots of the system: trade, ownership, and tyranny. Trade, what is it at its most simplest? It is giving something for something. I do the dishes if you fix my bike. I get the children from school if you go get a new sunscreen. You get 5 of my fish I caught, if you give me 2.5 of those breads you baked. Where did it all go horribly wrong? Cute as a trade model is, allowing every individual to inspect what he/she gets doing this by myself here. Cute as a trade model is, allowing every individual to inspect what he gets for his work, the suffering under its rhetoric since the Middle Ages has been dreadful. Where did it all go wrong? Compare the following trades to the ones mentioned. I own this land from the mountains to the sea. You will farm here, but I will take 50%. And occasionally rob you blind when I feel like it. I will forgive you your debt if you become my slave for life. I will give you a mortgage on your business factory building for 35 annually. Get some wage slaves together and get them cranking already. We can both get rich on this deal. I will not cut your throat if you give me your wallet. Not all is well in the world of trade. Can a defining trait be identified that makes a trade proper? The ruling system has held that it is mostly a problem of consent. If both parties consent to a trade, it must be proper. That is an insufficient understanding of trade. How does the larger trade system function? If it becomes harder to catch fish, there will be fewer fish on the market, and the customer competition for it will be greater, driving the prices up. The fisherman spends 3 times longer on catching one fish, but will, roughly speaking, get 3 times more for it, while a number of fishermen will go bankrupt and have to divert to another line of work. Over time, the system balances itself, but that is not the end of the story. Unlike the capitalists like to portray it, so they can continue to profit from their abuses of power. The effect of market prices balancing work is distorted greatly by power concentration. A baron who owns all land can ask any price for rent, since there is no competition. The boss of a big business can suck in all the created wealth that everyone worked hard for, because he is the tyrant of the group and his or her whim is law. The market for new businesses is cornered by investment capital, which is most profitable where labor gets squeezed the most, because profit equals turnover minus costs. Labor rights and wages count as costs in a tyrannical business, not as profits. The decision-making party in a business sees the labor force as chattel. The less it costs him, the more he and his financier will earn. Which financiers will grow riches in a model that allows free investment for money? Do you know the answer to that? I did this chat lecture and nobody seemed to be able to come up with the right answer. What if the question is, what kind of morality will thrive best as a financier? Well, the most tyrannical and abusive businesses who also have the greatest market turnover, the most customers. Those businesses who abuse labor will do best. Roughly speaking. Part 2. Solutions. Now for the interesting part. The problem at its principle is simple. Concentration of power produces concentration of wealth that is not worked for. This then seems it needs an equally obvious remedy, the distribution of power to all. How? A David model. How to defeat the baron owning How to defeat the baron land owning feudal lords? Give everyone an equal piece of land for free. Those that do not want to be farmers can rent it to those who do, causing the market for soil rent to have many givers and many takers, rather than just one or a cartel of feudal lords. How to defeat the industrialist owner, the owners of the means of production. A business is a tyranny. Who in their right mind can accept such an affront? Are we chattel? No, we can come together in the businesses as well and decide on the course of action for all important division of the spoils of work together. Turn it into a democracy, a free-floating group in the markets. For a nation, the same is true on a larger, more extreme scale. No more oligarchy, no more plutocracy, no more monarchy and its feudal lords. The people rule through law and vote. How to defeat the banker? This is perhaps the subtlest of issues, because making a loan is a consensual act. However, free investment credit rules clearly do not work. Not just because the bankers have managed to overtake the printing of the currency or drive the nation off the cliff with their lending games that the politicians they bought engage in. During the industrialization, it was more than obvious that banking is a menace, and it's on its own through its financier games. It cannot be anything but a menace eventually, because it has to follow the rules of profitability. This is where most people make the big mistake, thinking that a financier is a business like any other. It is not a business like any other. They do not work, they gamble. Point 1. Point 2. The profit comes from group tyranny. At least those who engage in it become the richest, hence dominate the sector. And because money is so powerful, they can eventually buy up anything. The whole government, all the land, all the businesses. Wage wars, erect empires, kill you, dominate you. Such things will not be very easy to accomplish through the art of baking bread, fixing homes, and all such productive efforts. Even if you reach a monopoly in the sector, which will be not that easy, and should be combated as well. The financiers financing those menacing companies are the ones that end up dominating. This is an eventually inescapable effect, if at least business tyranny is allowed for them to invest in. Then eventually the economy has to concentrate its power into a few hands, merging businesses into bigger and more abusive conglomerates until even the entire world is in their hand. The solution to this can be a combination of prohibiting lending for profit and to install a non-profit investment system, which can either be coupled to the national democracy or be composed of vetted private good cause type venues. Summary. The ills of the economy come from concentration of power. Trade in its most simplest barter form is not a problem. It can and does work. But a trade system leads naturally into a money system to make it more efficient, and then the lending game may occur. If the society allows tyrannical businesses or other nefarious methods, then that is where the loans will give the greatest returns, and through those whole society will end up dominated by the few for their own selfish and criminal gains. People who invest in the abuses of labor are not good people, they are bad people. Hence society ends up dominated by the money power in the hands of bad people. That is where the wars and tyranny really starts, as they attempt to choke the people and bring them under ever greater control. To solve this, we need to combat power concentration with its opposite, power distribution. To distribute the power of sovereign government to all in true people's democracy, democratic authorities. To turn businesses that for whatever reason lose their starter, their entrepreneur, to become internal democracies. This way we do not hurt the ability of the people to start up new businesses, get it going and provide it with discipline, keeping the markets dynamic with the new initiative needed to equalize prices on labor amounts for all democratic ventures. To turn private finance into non-profit finance and to leave the markets to their own ways rather than dominating them with the finance, democratic investments. To distribute the soil, not wealth, but opportunity, to all as an inalienable birthright, to be more correct, natural resources who are easily distributed. Democratic demarcations, raw resource distribution. Part 3. Ownership, you say? Trade means to trade what you own. You made the fish by catching it. The economic value is in that it is in your hand rather than in the sea. The trade is for that fact. You make the piano, therefore it is in your hand naturally. and morally to sell. You also own your own natural labor this way. But land, who made the land? The baron? You? No, the land was given. It can be conquested and subjected to a legal model, but it is not created and then sold for its creation work. The company then, who made it? The entrepreneur or starter did. But did he? Isn't the business there because people work in it? By leaving the power for the duration to the starter. Excuse me. The company then, who made it? The entrepreneur starter did. But did he or she? Isn't the business there because people work in it? By leaving the power for the duration to the starter, provided people can start their own democratic initiatives, would satisfy the claim of the starter. However, when a business starter leaves, does that mean he can sell it? That would be a natural act, but would it lead to a natural new situation under a new owner? Who is the next boss to claim ownership over other people? What happened to the natural ownership rights of those that worked for years in the business? Didn't they make it too? Isn't it their natural hand as well, quite literally? The idea is then to have a business of some size get handed over into the employees when the starter leaves, because they are the rightful heirs. Since the business is also their work, they are also to own what they make. Not to mention a new job market for normally paid and just company management would come about, so that businesses can better run by hired labor rather than people who, for whatever reason, which is often from exploitation or even crime, can buy a stock of human cattle organized as a business. Secondly, they are women and men and not slaves, so it goes to the practice of democracy as well. Signing on to become a worker. A boss order you around without you complaining is akin to slavery. Signing on to become a worker, a boss order you around without you complaining person, is akin to slavery. To democratize the business at the point where the starter leaves is to limit the period of wage slavery, after which all again become real humans. You can hire yourself into slavery, but not forever. You can get out of it over time by law. Money is again quite subtle, but larger capital is usually the result of exploitations and often simply of organized drugs crime. If not, it is often the result of previous lending games for which was neither worked, for it was gambled, however. So again, who made the money that is invested? If the essence of trade lies in work and not in theft or acquiring passive power positions through conquest, then the issue of land, money and bossing all fall out and ought to be singled out for special treatment. The relation to power concentration is also a natural one. If one can own and use what one has not worked for, then it becomes possible to control and own it up to an infinite amount, because work requires time and energy, which are limited. If it takes 5 days to make an acre of land, you cannot own all the land in the world because you could never work that much. But if it is a matter of theft, then one can add more and more to the passive base of power to be then abused to make unfair trades with. So this is all really quite rational and logical, but perhaps more importantly, it is practical. It can and should be done as soon as possible. Now. Part 4. In closing. The economy will be rounded off by acknowledging certain sectors are inimical to competition, such as the infrastructure, the railways, the fact that the medical sector is largely not functioning well under an exclusive trade system. Excuse me. Sectors of productivity that are inherently monopolies or for other reasons do not function on the trade should therefore be nationalized. We can deal with the threat of impossible competitions from wage slaves in other nations by erecting tariff walls around the national economy. We will be a little poorer for it, but more stable and more just, and keep our industries alive. There are 1,000 and more issues about economics, but this is probably already more than should have been attempted in about half an hour. How exactly to democratize the businesses? What is wrong with a planned economy? Why not have a global government? How does one expect to nationalize finance? Won't that give power into the hands of an already corrupt government? How to democratize the national democracy anyway? Is what we have the best we could do? How does one implement these changes? It is not like the enemy will recognize the truth and roll over. A Leninist vanguard attempt at the sovereignty through civil war? A socio-democratic modeling on in the institutions without much direction? Imperialist war by the capitalists against all sovereign revolutionary initiative? How to deal with that? All these things and more belong in a rigorous training or education about economics, and each issue deserves a lengthy debate between positions. Those issues may and many more are addressed at www.law4.org, law4.org, also free for the cause. The system of democratic authorities, ventures, investments, demarcations is worked out in a ready-to-go constitution as a way of showing that such a model can be practical. The idea from this end is to have that constitution ratified in enough nations to prevent imperialist war on the revolutions. This constitution also has an innovative and extensive new model for the national democracy. It is all meant to reduce corruption and exploitation. Feel free to make your own, even better, David constitutions. Let me know so I can enjoy your work. Also presented for your consideration is an extensive system to implement the changes. If you want a lecture on it, ask. Feel free to get more talk on these subjects at Heavenly Serenity every Sunday, 11 AM to 12 AM, Second Life time. See you perhaps there. For all who managed to absorb all this and stay here, thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please send them to me. I will try to answer them. try to understand. Thank you.